And I want to talk about the communities, because this is where all of the mayor's failures seem to finally come, and that is the community crisis. And again, I want to talk to you about how I understand community. I don't think the mayor has probably been out in your communities to see what's happening locally, but I know quite a bit about communities. Actually, before I started London Real about 12 years ago, my martial arts instructor was actually highly involved in the communities. And I went to him and I said, this is before I had a family, before I met Mariana and moved in with her and her daughter. And I was just a bachelor living alone. And I said, I want to do something for my community. And he said, Brian, I'll never forget this. He said, Brian, if you change a child, you can change your community. And at the time I thought, that's crazy. How can changing one child change your community? And I kept talking to him, and I found a group that I could volunteer with and mentor. And I mentored a young boy about 10 years old in the community of Homerton for an entire year. I spent every Saturday with him for a year. It was 4 hours. It was exhausting. I had no parenting skills. Sometimes he was great fun to be with, and sometimes he was difficult to be with, but I had to make sure I mentor him. I gave him a father figure, and it was an incredible time, and it got me really connected with how a community works and how essential our children are in the community. For the past 10 years, I've been building the London Real community. Now it's 5 million people worldwide that have now built around a community. And this is what I've learned. A community needs 5 things. A community means this: people who want to help, in this case me, with London Real and with the mentoring I did. People who need help. A lot of times it's my viewers. In this case, it was that young man that I mentored in Homerton. The third thing, infrastructure, location, or a process. In this case, we have our digital media. Sometimes you have a community center. Sometimes you have a process. That's great. The fourth thing you need is cash, and I want to talk about that shortly. And the fifth thing you need is communication. If you don't know that someone wants to help you, how can you ever find out? If you don't know that someone needs your help, how can it make it happen? And so it's all about how you pair together these people and these entities to make sure that it's a win-win scenario for all sorts of people. And actually, I was having this same conversation in my studio a couple months ago with David Haye. He's the world championship boxer from Bermondsey, which we're probably right near that borough right now. And he came over and we spent about 4 hours on a Sunday night talking about this. And he said, Brian, they're closing down the boxing gyms in these communities. He said, Brian, these young men have nothing to do with that energy. He said, I used to be a young man. I had some anger, some frustration. I needed to find a way to channel that, with his fists. And he said, it kills me to see these community centers being shut down. And I said, David, I've got some ideas and I've got some solutions. And so it's about providing those opportunities for our young people. And it's about providing those community centers the funds they need. And that comes to that fourth part that I was talking about, and that is cash. Let's be honest. The biggest problem we have with our community centers around here is they shut down because they don't get budget from their council or from their mayor. It's always one of the first things to go when they slash budgets. You probably know what I'm talking about. And yet they're so essential in making sure our children don't result to knife crime and they don't result to unemployment, and they have basically a lost generation. And so this is my solution to the cash. And I'll be honest, it's not my idea. It actually comes from Jamal Edwards, MBE. Jamal is a fellow YouTuber just like me. He created SBTV, one of the biggest hip hop video channels in history. Put London on the map, put UK grime on the map, kicked off great artists like Ed Sheeran and Dizzy Rascal. And he was actually a guest on my show on London Real about 5 or 6 years ago. And he was explaining, or he explained later how he went to his community center in Acton and he saw that it was closed. And that was the same community that taught Jamal video editing skills and music production skills that allowed him to create this multi-million-pound business. And he said, why is that community center closed? Let's see how we can open it. And he reached out to Google and he reached out to the Wellcome Trust, and he got hundreds of thousands of corporate donations, and the community center was reopened. I want to use Jamal's model to start opening up community centers around the city. I've shared these ideas when I went and spoke live in Homerton. I shared these ideas when I went and spoke live at Tower Hamlets last year, and everyone in the community thought this was an excellent idea. They thought this has real possibility, and they said, we're sick and tired of going to City of Hall and being in meetings with the mayor and asking, where did the money go? Because it never came to our community center. I'm talking about a new kind of community center, one where you can go and practice yoga, learn how to cook, one where grandma can go, the kids can go. You can find about employment opportunities, about housing, a fun place to go, not the funny smelling community center that teaches ballroom dancing once a week. I'm talking about a properly funded community center that makes sure we get our kids off the streets, that shows them skills like entrepreneurship, that shows them a future. I have a plan to do this through corporate donations. I'm going to get on the phone with the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world, the Barclays of the world, and say this: you have done business in London for many years. It's time you give something back. And guess what? I'm a businessman. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. This is a win-win situation for everyone. You do something great for the community recognizes you, and we win and we win. The problem is your current mayor of London, I mean, he wouldn't come up with this idea if he hit himself in the head, because he doesn't have this kind of innovation. He's never been in the business world. That's why we need new ideas, new direction, and someone like me who's come from 30 years in the business world. I'm going to bring new ideas and innovation that government's never seen. And that's why we look at politics and it seems like it's in the dark ages, right? Type in yes if you think I'm right. If it looks like the government, it seems like it's operating in the 1960s. Their ideas are old, their plans are old, their methods of communication are old, everything about them is tired. And I think that era is over. This era is about communication digitally. It's about exchanging ideas every single day live through these social platforms. It's about me putting the best ideas out there. I don't care if it's a labor idea or a conservative idea. I don't care if it's a green agenda or a liberal dem agenda. I just don't care. If it benefits the community of London, I'm all in. So let's get the best ideas and let's implement them, and let's stop accepting excuses from our government, because it's not needed. We have the greatest minds in the world. We have the greatest city in the world. We have the greatest resources in the world. Why don't we just make it happen? And that's why I'm running to be your next mayor of London. These are some of my many solutions to London's problems. They're actually all spelled out in detail on our website, brianformayor.london. I've got 12 detailed policies. I've got 12 policy videos. You can learn all about this stuff.